All right, welcome back to another episode of Courtside Conversations. I'm Ryan Davis, the girls basketball coach at Roanoke Benson High School. And alongside me, as always, is my good friend and coaching mentor, Josh Williams, the girls basketball coach at Clinton High School. First off, we want to say thank you to all of those who took the time to listen to our first episode and that reached out to us and gave us feedback. One of the reasons why we wanted to start Courtside Conversations was because as basketball coaches, we're always looking to learn, grow, and steal a few good ideas from other people. That's exactly what this podcast is all about. Every episode we're going to share our experiences, discuss challenges, things that have helped us be successful, and hopefully give you something that you can take back to your program. So with that being said, Coach, welcome in.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me back, Ryan. It's been a while. It's been a few weeks since we shot the first episode. It was a lot of fun. We talked about practice planning, and the feedback was good. We had some people reach out and say they enjoyed the episode. So looking forward to see what we can put together here in episode 2. And maybe give some people out there who happen to find themselves in this situation some ideas that might help them moving forward.
Okay. So this episode is going to be bringing a program back to life, and rebuilding is more than just wins. So, Coach, when you took over at Clinton, you inherited a program that had really struggled. When you take over a struggling program, what's the first thing that you think is important to change?
Yeah, Clinton's a situation I took over where I think it was 11 wins in the 3 years before I took it over. And I remember going to watch a game and watching them play just to kind of see how do the players interact with each other? What was the culture like? Like, how are you acting, interacting, and reacting to things that are happening on the floor? What was their effort and their attitude like? Did they give up on plays? I think being able to see the team perform before I took over actually helped me. It kind of starts to point the arrow in the direction that you need to go. I think most programs, usually why the job is open, it's because obviously it wasn't being successful probably. It's usually a culture thing, attitude and effort type of stuff, work ethic, playing hard through plays. Those are usually things that I'm looking for. And those are things that we can fix right away. I think the way I look at it, kind of a framework, is we need to probably try to raise the floor before we can raise the ceiling. And I think raising the floor is pretty easy. I think we can do that in the first 30 days if we tackle it the right way, right? So I think your microscope, if you look at it through two lenses, like I usually think of like there's a microscope and a telescope. The telescope, I'm looking through every once in a while just to see where am I going, what direction do we need to get to. But then my eyes need to come back down to that microscope and say, okay, right now, right here, what are we doing to build to that future? And so those first 30 days, it's really kind of a microscope lens. How can we raise the floor? I think the first thing that I want to do is establish systems. I think systems give players confidence. It gives them a template and a format. It gives them comfort and convenience for them to learn and grow. So I think the 4 systems I'm going to put in right away, a practice system. Like I want kids to come every day to practice and know, like we talked about in episode 1, this is what practice is going to look like. Now, coach might change some of the things within the template, but we know we're going to be working on these set things, right? Then we need an offensive system. We need to have a defensive system. And these can't be things that are going to waver. Like you can't 3 weeks in say, hey, we're scrapping this offensive system. Because I've seen people do this. You're going to lose all the confidence from the kids if you start changing what you're doing offensively. So do it with conviction so that the confidence goes from you into the players. So you got your offense and your defensive system. And then the 4th system would be your player development system. So that's like making them improve as not just as players, but as people as well. That's your skill work and that's your relationship building. I think those 4 things are really, really important. If you start doing those, you can raise your floor, right? And then that's going to give them confidence. And you're going to have to win some finite games along the way. Maybe it's quarters, possessions, a few games, just to help building confidence with the kids. And I think the way we do that, and the way I've done that, so I did that at Amboy, I did that at Clinton, and it was really just focusing kind of on 6 things, like discipline, defense, roles, responsibilities, togetherness, and toughness. And if you think about defense, it really intertwines all 6 of those things. You got to be disciplined when you're on defense because everybody has a role and a responsibility that they have to do within the defense, whether you're man or zone or whatever it is. When the ball goes, there's a new job for me, right? And then it keeps us together because we're on a mission as all 5 people playing team defense trying to get the stop. And it teaches them toughness because you got to, take drives through your chest, keep the ball out of the paint. You're trying to hit, find, fetch, get a rebound, and go. So all those things are teaching them just simple things along the way that can help the floor raise, even though it's not really going to impact your ceiling so much, but it can get you off the ground. And if you focus right there, those first 30 days, I think it's critical. The kids are going to start to find some confidence, and they're going to start to buy in to what you're selling. And I think I did that at Clinton, and it took us about that long to get kids to start buying in and believing in it. And then once they did, now you start to see the scoreboard getting closer, right? Because people, even if we hate it, like they're still going to judge us by the scoreboard, right? Admin, society, the people in the crowd, the parents, maybe not on wins, but are you competitive? Last year they were losing by 42 points. What are we losing by this year? 16, 15? Is it competitive? Right? So you're still getting judged by that, even though we don't like that. So I think this is a way that we can shrink the gap on the scoreboard extremely fast, okay, and not focus right now. We're going to have to go back to the telescope, and we'll talk about that later. But I think right now, I would just focus on those things in the first 30 days. What about you?
I really like your microscope telescope analogy. That's pretty good. As for me, when I took over at Roanoke Benson, one of the first things I did was I scheduled a meeting with any girls that were interested in playing because I was told that the basketball program was probably the least liked sport for girls at Roanoke Benson, and that a lot of them weren't planning on coming out and playing. So I went and met the girls and just kind of introduced myself and kind of talked about the program. And before I had met with them, I went back and I found games on YouTube, and I watched probably 80% of them. And I had taken notes on all of the upperclassmen and people that I knew, playing in the varsity game and stuff like that. And when I met them, I could talk about them a little bit, like, number 2, you were a really good shooter. Defensively, you did a nice job on stopping the drive. Number 34, you were great at boxing out, rebounding, a tough guard around the rim, stuff like that. So they knew that I was interested, and I had bought in, and I was doing my homework on them. Then, I started talking about, their last couple seasons and, how they had went and what the culture was like. And I just sat back and listened, and, kind of towards the end, I, kind of reiterated some of these things and how, my goal was to come in and do these things. And I had goals for them, goals for us as a program. And they weren't like super specific at that time because I didn't know them that well. I hadn't actually seen them personally on the court. But just, goals that I would like to see. And after that meeting or whatever, I had gone home. I came back a couple days later, and some of the staff met me in the office, and they were like, "Wow, we haven't seen girls as hyped about basketball in a long time." They said they came into our class and said, this guy's got goals for us and has plans, and he's got expectations, and like that excited them. So I thought that was pretty cool, because again, it's something so simple, just to show that you care and you're there, and you want to do this thing together. And that's my big thing. I think where the turnaround started was just that initial conversation with them and sitting back and listening to them, and then kind of building goals together, and I think that really put us off on the right foot.
Yeah, like it's a great way to attack that first meeting, to meet your kids and just to bring that passion and energy and enthusiasm into your team. And it just, as soon as you walk in the room, I'm sure they could feel it coming off of you. Just a presence, and very cool way to start out your tenure there. And you didn't let them down, right? You guys had high goals, and you guys achieved a lot of that stuff. Breaking the school record for wins, and you had back-to-back 20-plus win seasons. You guys have been incredible in what you've done there. And it's interesting, too, I think, the difference between girls basketball and boys basketball, and just how many coaches are out there that care about the program and really want to see the girls succeed. It's unfortunate, but there are a lot
Yeah.
of high school girls programs where they don't have that,
Yep.
and there's no one there to push them out of their comfort zone and make them the best version of themselves. Which is why, a lot of times when a job opens, and an AD, they're just looking to fill it. They just want to
Yep.
fill that job. And they're hoping the person stays there as long as possible because they know it's a difficult job to fill. That's just the reality of where we are right now in 2026. I think in high school girls basketball, especially at the 1A, 2A level. And I think if you can find a coach that has your energy and your passion, I think the community is just going to fall in love with the team and what you're doing and what you're building and the program. And it helps to kind of get your program out of the finite. I like Simon Sinek, and he always talks about the finite game versus the infinite game. And it kind of helps get you out of these finite games and get you to the infinite game, which is where I'm trying to be with my program. Like finite games being like there's an agreed upon metric and timeline, like a basketball game. Whoever has the most points at the end of the 4 quarters is going to win. And we both agree upon that, and we're trying to win those. But there's a beginning, a middle, and there's an end to it. I'm trying to get away from that as much as I possibly can, and I'm trying to play what Simon calls the infinite game, right? Which is just you're just trying to stay in the game as long as possible. There's no ending. It's like if we were to say, let's measure a program, who's got the more successful program, how do you measure that? You might
Yeah.
look back over 5 years, and I might be looking back over 20 years. And someone might say, well, how many state championships do they have? Someone else might be looking at how many total wins they have. Like no one agrees upon those metrics and the time frame. So I'm just trying to stay in the game as long as I can. And when you have that kind of culture, I think it helps people to come back in year 2, year 3. Kids are going to be there in year 15, year 20, and your program is just going to continue to feed itself because of that energy, the passion, the culture that you have. People love what they hear, what they see, and how it makes them feel. And I think it's great. I think, and that's how we need to lead our teams now, I think, is just have that infinite mindset. Don't worry so much about the winning, because that creates stress and expectations, right? And then poor performance, really. So I try to stay away from that and just focus on our growth. How do we continue to get better? What are things that we can measure, so we can show them you're improving? And then the wins will take care of itself, and I try not to focus so much on that. But when early on, that's all I focused on was the finite games, how many wins can we stack, and just talking about all the wrong things. But
I
yeah,
think that's all coaches, though.
sure, I think it is, especially
Talking. Go ahead.
especially when we're young. I think it
Yes,
takes us a while to figure that out.
for sure. Talking about the infinite game, I look at that even outside of basketball, as a mobile DJ, shout out Jacked Entertainment, shameless plug. I just did a DJ'd a wedding for a girl that I coached in high school at Metamora, and it's those relationships that I haven't seen her. I followed her on on Twitter or X. She played at Olivet. I would reach out to her every once in a while, congratulate her and stuff. But we had such a strong relationship with her time at Metamora that it's continued beyond like that finite just season, one season. It's
Yeah.
continued through years, and here she is, like graduated from college, and reached out to me, and I'm there. That was great, but she wanted a picture with me. She remembered me wearing my crazy pants. She's the first person she goes, I want you to wear crazy pants to my wedding. I'm like, that great. I won't disappoint. But it's things like that that's a big thing for me is that infinite as far as relationships as well, because I think that, again, going back to the old saying, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That doesn't stop after a game or a season. That stuff continues, and that's probably my biggest the biggest reward for me as a coach is having those kids come back and talk to me and call me coach, and reach out if they need something, because that's what I always tell them. Like, I want nothing more than for you to be successful, not just in basketball, but in life, and whatever I can do to help you. That's what I want to do. And so I think just going beyond skills and wins and losses and stuff like that, that infinite relationship as well, I think is huge for not only establishing culture, but turning a program around.
Yeah, Matt Saman calls them coaching paychecks that come back to you later in life. I think that's a pretty cool way to think about it. When they come back 5, 10, 15 years later, like that situation you talked about. I mean, that's really what it's all about. When you see those people, no one's talking about how many wins you had or what championship you won. It's about the crazy pants or what you said in the locker room and everybody was laughing, or it's those moments, right?
Yeah.
So I think we just got to make sure that the journey is what this is really all about. It's not about the scoreboard. And let's just let these kids grow, develop, provide as much joy for them as we can, and let them be the best versions of themselves. I think that's our job. That's our goal. It's taken me a really long time myself to figure that out because, just like most young coaches, I wanted to win and win a lot, and it's hard to get out of that mindset. I didn't get out of that until I read that book, Lead for God's Sake, which I know you've read as well. And that book really changed my life from a coaching standpoint and started getting my brain to think about, man, there's a lot more to this than just the X's and the O's. I love the clinic and the offense and all that stuff, but it's just not where the success comes from.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great story, man.
How did you help your players change the mindset? That it's a struggling program, like you said, very few wins in the last couple of years before you took over. I know my players, when I came in, they were coming off an 8-23 season, and their the expectations weren't big. It got to a point where when we started having success and, like you said, broke the school record for wins, my girls didn't know how to celebrate and like enjoy winning. It was really kind of an awkward feeling for me. Like we'd go in after a big win and I'd be all hyped up and they're just like sitting there. And I would joke like, don't you guys know how to win and like celebrate and be excited about this stuff? And, it just, they hadn't done it. And, so to be able to kind of change that mindset, moving forward and, to not worry about the past and all the losses and lack of success that you've had, but to look forward and, this is what we're going to do. And this is, by doing these things, this is where, we're headed. So, what did you do to help kind of change that mindset in your players?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. I think it's a collection, right? It's like culture. I think it's a collection of every moment that you have with them, right? I think when you come in the door and you have a typed practice plan and here's what we're doing every to the minute, right? They're like, oh, this guy's serious. He actually has a plan. Like you were saying, he actually has goals and expectations for us. That right away shows that you're a professional coach, right? You're not just some dad who's coming in, just to have his name in the paper. I think it's the accountability. Or how are you holding kids accountable to the details? Like if, back then I was really a stickler on, spacing and you've got it. This is a 2-step setup. Your foot's got to be right here at this spot in the back door. Like everything's got to be precise. And there was so much new stuff coming at them all at once. Like it was a new offensive system. It was a new defensive system. Our culture was completely different. Everything was brand new. So I'm sure their head was just spinning. I'm giving them playbooks that are super thick, all these rules and stuff. And kids are just trying to just doggy paddle and keep their head above water. And so they weren't really thinking about the past. And then I remember like the mantra that I was using, and I put it up on my bulletin board. And I got it at a basketball clinic. At the time, he was the head men's coach at Rockford College. His name was Tim Buckley. And Tim Buckley has been at Ball State. He was at Indiana. But I didn't realize this, but I think he actually got this from Bill Parcells. But in this clinic, he said, blame nobody, expect nothing, do something. And I was like, that is exactly what we need. And I put that on my bulletin board in my office, which is still there to this very day. I don't use that anymore, but that's still up there, and I still read it every day I walk into the office. And I think I used that for 2 years. Like, we're not going to blame anybody for what's happened to us in the past, right? We're not going to expect anything to be given to us. There's no entitlement here. You got to do the work, and if you do the work, you can be as good as all these teams around you that have been beating you. You just don't believe it yet because you have no confidence because you haven't been competitive, right? So blame nobody, expect it, and do something. And that was through our work. Here's the practice plan. We're working you hard. We're running. When they're losing drills, practices were competitive. We've got winners. We've got losers. And losing wasn't fun. So I think just everything combined, I think really gets the kids focused on. And then once they see, in a game, oh, we're about to beat this team that we haven't beat ever, you've got them. They're hooked, and they're going to do whatever you said, And we had another one. It was like our team, our time. I remember that was one and I remember a kid saying that in a timeout. Like we were at Hayworth, and we had a lead, and they were starting to come back, and someone said that. It was a senior. She was like, hey, our team, our time. I was like, wow, I couldn't believe she was saying something that we had said. But yeah, I think it's a culmination of all that. How about you?
Yeah. I think, I would agree with a lot of what you said. Just getting them to believe, and that was our saying last year. And coincidentally, I'm wearing my my Ted Lasso shirt because I am going to try my hand at coaching second grade travel soccer, and I've never played or coached soccer before. And I had my first meeting a couple hours ago, so my head is spinning. But it was believe, and that was like our second season, and it was, you know, believe that our first year wasn't a fluke. You put in the work, you put in the time, you put in the effort, all these things, and we believe that we are going to be as successful, if not more successful, in year two than we were in year one. But again, it kind of goes back to that mindset of, we don't know how to win. Like, so was it just a fluke? And, there was a lot of pressure that they put on themselves from, the school expecting things, their classmates talking to them about the season and how things are going. They put a lot of pressure on themselves as well. But just that reassurance and talk of staying the course and all that stuff is good stuff. As far as, trying to turn a program around, I think that it's really important that, as a varsity coach, we take, some initiative and try to get, the youth involved. I personally have reached out to, our rec association coaches, and offered assistance in things. I've got some things working. I had approached them and asked about running a 3-on-3 league, for girls this season. Instead of, they just ran like practices, like skill practices, and they didn't. Some of them didn't even play games. So I think, a 3-on-3 league where, they're out there, they're playing the game. They've got people out there helping guide them, talk to them, and 3-on-3, you have to be involved. You can't hide like a 5-on-5 game. I want them to start developing, these skills, so that when they get into junior high, that helps our junior high program, and they're ready to play and play at a high level. And I've been working the last 2 years with my junior high coaches, and getting our system kind of implemented at the junior high level. Maybe not so as difficult. Dummy it down a little bit, but still the basics, the fundamentals. Doing all the little things at a high level, so that when we get into like the season, you're able to run that offense. And now once you get into like your freshman year and stuff like that, you're not coming in at square one. Like, you have a good foundation. So I think, working with the youth programs and getting everything aligned, I think was, and it is going to be a huge positive for our program, as far as, not only getting it turned around, but keeping it, playing at a high level.
Yeah, I think the 3-on-3, with all the decisions they're going to have to make, I think that helps kids improve so fast. Like, that's the skill of the actual game. Like, probably what they were doing before, you said they didn't even play some games and they were doing practices. It was probably a lot of technique work. And like, all the research now says that that doesn't really translate to an actual game, the technique. The skill is actually taking the technique, putting it into a dynamic setting, with a live defender. And now I have to adapt to this environment around me and figure out how to make that technique work. It might be off of the other foot. It might be with the other hand that I didn't practice. But that's that dynamic learning that we have to do. And then you had also said, you talked about the 3-on-3, the decision making, which is important, and then getting everybody involved. the biggest challenge I've seen, because I've been in with the YMCA and helped our kids. They've ran clinics and they've invited me in. I've been in there and I did clinics and kind of ran it like I would run my basketball camp. So we do a basketball camp, bring as many kids in as we can. We even take kids from the surrounding areas if they want to come, and we just try to teach everybody basketball and try to make it as fun as we can and get kids to love the game and want to come back and continue to play. I think that's important. You got to make sure kids have joy so they don't quit in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and that you lose these kids somewhere along the way. You want to keep them when they get to you as a freshman. I've coached the junior high level. There were 3 years at Clinton where I did 7th grade girls, kind of ran the practice, and I was the varsity girls coach at the same time, and that was difficult. That's a lot of work. And I think the biggest challenge I found with the youth programs, whether it's Clinton Blaze or the YMCA or whatever, is that the faces will often change, right? So you get these parents that have some kids coming through the program and they're on board, and you can go in and you can say, hey, let's do this. This is the framework we want to have for Lady Maroons basketball. And then 2 years later, they're out the door, right? Because their kids have moved on, and now there's new faces. So it's a lot of work. It's a never-ending battle. You got to stay in there on the ground, boots on the ground, and keep training people if you want that to pay off in the end, just because there is so much turnover. And I know in some places that could change on a year-to-year basis, and you could be training new people over and over and over again. So I think consistency is as deep as you can go, from the varsity head coach all the way down to those incoming 3rd and 4th graders. You want people to stay in place as long as possible. Right? It's great to have your assistants and keep them for years, but when you can do it down there, I think now you've really got something.
I agree 100%. Anything that we didn't touch on, Coach, that you want to talk about?
I think you can't, when you're trying to turn a program around and bring it back to life, I think joy is the most important thing. Kids got to have fun. You want them talking about it in the hallways. You want your basketball program to be the most exciting part of their day. I think that's important. And then don't ever forget as a coach, also, the Dean Oliver, the 4 factors, right? Like what wins games? Because winning at some point is important too. So we know effective field goal percentage is going to help you win, your offensive rebounding percentage, your turnover percentage, and your free throw rate. And what we talked about at the very beginning, where we talked about kind of raising the floor through your defense and your discipline, that impacts all 4 of those levels, right? You're going to decrease effective field goal percentage. You're going to increase their turnovers, which is going to help you win. Your free throw rate for them is going to go down because you're going to foul less, right? And then what would be the other one? Turnover, offensive rebounding, effective field goal, and free throw rate. I think we got them all.
Yep.
But all of those are going to help you from that defensive standpoint win more basketball games. And that's just like winning is just the cherry on top. It just helps everything go so much smoother and put more excitement into the community, right? The community, like you were in those sectional games and your community was filling those gyms.
They showed out and showed
That
up.
was
It was
incredible.
something that I'll never forget. My players will never forget. It was so awesome.
Yeah, that's how you know you've done it, man. You turned the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you and I know that, programs, they're not rebuilt in January. They're rebuilt every day, April through October. And, by doing all these things that we just talked about that have helped us, helped our programs, that's eventually what's going to reflect on our culture, and that's where the winning and the success comes in by doing all those things. So, well, Coach, I had a good time again on this one, a little bit shorter than our last one. So, any closing comments before we go ahead and stop this?
No, we'll continue to put out more content, things that we think people are interested in, especially high school coaches, boys, girls coaches, whatever, things that we've experienced, things we've went through, we've lived it, we've been through it, and hopefully you guys enjoy it, and we'll keep doing it as long as you guys keep watching it.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning in. If you have any feedback or any questions, please reach out and let us know. We would love to, talk to you guys and maybe touch on any topics or whatever that you might have some questions on. All right. Thanks, Coach.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. We'll see you in the next one.